But the weirdest thing was when I had to go to work for the very first time as a civilian, and I went into my, you're laughing. I went to my closet and I opened up my closet and I said, "Oh, what am I going to wear?" And it was for the first time ever. I'm like, "Holy crap!" First time in 14 years. I was like, I have to make that decision. Before it was on a piece of paper. Here's a uniform of the day. You know what I mean? And then for the first, I had to make that choice.
Welcome to the podcast that guides men to demystify and develop their intuition. I'm your host, Doug Beitz. Let's dig into the science and expand your horizons. I'm happy for any of you guys, the wisdom to pour from you guys to chime in to head us off in a direction.
Now, this is very selfish, and others on the line may have another thing, but I'd be interested in having a chat about transition.
Yeah, well, I know Trunnis has transitioned from the military to civilian life. Kevin, you
Oh,
may.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll let either of you, Kevin or Trunnis, either of you want to tune in?
Well, my thing about civilian, I will say this. When I got out of the Navy, and it's funny that you're bringing this up today because my son, as of 3 hours ago, is transitioning into the Navy. And
Wow.
so I'm very excited about that. And I transitioned out back in '08. But I will say this, the weirdest thing, I was so happy. I was so ready to get out and become a civilian. But the weirdest thing was when I had to go to work for the very first time as a civilian, and I went into my you're laughing because I went to my closet and I opened up my closet and I said, "Oh, what am I going to wear?" And for the first and it was for the first time ever, I'm like, "Holy crap." First time in 14 years. I was like, I have to make that decision. Before it was on a piece of paper. Here's a uniform of the day. You know what I mean? And then for the first, I had to make that choice. And even though I hopefully made the right choice, but it's weird. In civilian life, as far as, and this is what I've noticed, civilian life, what really gets me is, the United States Navy or whatever country you're in, they spend, like, for example, me, I was a legal man in the United States Navy. They spent 3 years getting me to the point where I can do my job effectively. They spent 2 weeks to turn me into a civilian again, and I was lost. So that's one thing you got to watch out for.
Yeah, and that loss thing is a real thing for me. I'm taking steps. I've been doing a lot of reading and researching to at least allow me to understand what I'm experiencing or what I'm feeling. Um, yeah, but it's and look, as you know, Doug, I took a year off, back away, but that ended up being a bit of a bloody health crisis in the middle of it. So it didn't turn out to be any sort of a breakaway or anything. So this one will be a bit different, and this one's going to be like retirement is not in my vocabulary, but it's a big change, and I think that simple example around the uniform. Yep, I get that now. The luxury for me is where I'm in my life. I can choose to how little or how much I want to put to other things, and that might include employment to some degree, but it won't be for money or be for engagement. And there are lots of things I'm interested, as you know, Doug. And certainly, I'm big on trying to help others not fall in the same potholes, plural, that I've fallen in over the years, professionally and personally. So it's going to be interesting, and it's funny how I find myself correcting people because everyone wants to use the retirement word, and I've got to correct them and say, "Oh, I'm actually resigning." But then they look at you because they know that I'm virtually about to hit 60, and I've got to have that talk with them about in this day and age, none of us get to retire. We should be engaged in something somewhere. Gee, Doug, I even, going back to being in the water, I've even reached out to the marine park and said, have you got any programs running for crown of thorns starfish eradication? which means you volunteer, you go along, they feed you and they accommodate you for the period of the time that you're working with them, and you spend your hours on the water injecting a non-toxic, non-poisonous substance into these crown of thorns starfish that just kills them, even though it has no effect broader than that on the marine environment. So so my mind's out there thinking about what I can do, but for me, there will be a period where I need to let my mind. Let me start again. I think there'll be a period for me where I need to focus on mindfulness, and whether it's injecting substance into crowns of thorns starfish, or whether it's an appeal up and down the laps. I don't want to fall in the trap of feeling like I've got to be a human doing, to use that term.
I hear you. You want to be a human being. You want to be.
Yeah.
You just want to do something for something to do. Yeah.
But happy to hear any other thoughts. Thank you, Trunnis, for sharing me your experience. Having been one who has had the benefit of, you go to the rack each day and you get a uniform off the rack, and that's your choice made for you.
Yeah. Kevin, have you got anything you want to chip in?
Yeah, it's funny. My different transition. So I transitioned careers about 5 years ago, based on my own personal journey. And it's interesting that I'm feeling, coming in kind of blind as far as what we're going to talk about. And then Doug, you're kind of like, you feel a little flat. We're talking about transition. Of course, as usual, it all ties together perfectly. And Andrew, something you nailed for me is in that being, that pursuit of beingness, is finding the space between. And the space between is a place where many of us are very uncomfortable because we don't have something to do. We don't have a next step. We might, it's like, well, what do I do now? And that space can be a little unnerving. And Trunnis, it's funny, as I've transitioned, still being a civilian, I've gone much more towards that uniform approach where I stopped making decisions in my mind because it was just crosstown traffic. I'm in meditation. It's like I'm stuck in rush hour. I'm just like getting that negative reinforcement. I'm like, well, why am I listening to anything that's going on up here? I'm pretty sure we've talked about it before. Come across some research suggests about 95 to 99% of our thoughts on any given day are going to be a version of something we've thought before, or a negatively slanted thought, a judgment, a comparison, being critical of ourselves or of others. A parent to a child, oh, why do you always do this to me? You're driving me crazy. So we get into these like fatalistic ends of the spectrum where it's always and never. And then we're not even in the decision-making equation. We are in the back trunk and our subconscious is making the decisions. Mm-hmm. So on my own journey, I was looking at like, well, what do I want to wear today? And I'm like, this is a thought that I don't even need to have. So if you look at my closet, it's 15 shirts of varying degrees of gray. And I've got 2 or 3 different pants, and that's what I might go to every day, because it was a decision I was recognizing, like, it's just taking up too much energy. It's like, well, I don't have a dog in the fight. I kind of don't care. As long as it's comfortable, it fits well, I'm happy. So as I've kind of like been excavating the choices, what I've found is I've gotten more comfortable in that space between. And this is macro and micro. So it's a cycle of creation. So with everything and anything in life, it's creation, stabilization, dissolution, and then the space between. In a microcosm, we can look at that in our day. We wake up, we be and do, we wind down, we sleep, and then that's the space between. You see it a lot of times in multi-generational businesses. So the first generation creates it, the second generation stabilizes it or grows it. A lot of times that third generation who's born into the wealth tends to squander it. And then there's the space between, maybe a sale, maybe going public or something like that. And so it's this macro micro cycle that we're all in. And we're, for the most part, we're really resistant to that last part. And even the dissolution. Well, creation is good, stabilization is good. the solution space between tends to get uncomfortable. So whether it's feeling a low period, Doug, like you mentioned, or Andrew, this new kind of phase transition that you're stepping into, and even on a daily scale, if we can find more comfort in that space between, whether it's taking a breath and not just do, whether it's pushing back from what we're doing and going for a walk to clear the mind, whether it's maybe we're a couple of weeks and it's like, we're just okay, not much is going on. I'm just feeling this drive or this call to exercise more. And then that's its own, comes with its own challenges of getting back on that horse. So for me, it's recognizing the cycle and getting a little bit more comfortable in those areas that most of us tend to avoid or want to spend less time in. And there's amazing bounty that can come from spending time in that kind of in-between space.
For me, what you've just described, one of the things that's kind of coming at me, my mind is pushing it at me, it's that expression about, you're taking a step out, and there's clearly a part in me that's worried that step out to a new tread or to a new spot is not going to support me. Now I can rationalise that out. And I probably use that rationalisation out too often, as opposed to let me feel what I need to feel. But it's real, and look, I am not fearful that I'm going to fall through. But it's funny how I do feel like there's a part of me that's going, hey, are you looking after us? Is it going to work out? And that negative thinking, I'm trying to put my mind to anything I consume at the moment has got to be positive, because I learned the hard way or benefits of all of us got and they're always fighting. They're always fighting over you, and I did learn the hard way that the one that wins there's an expression about a good dog and a bad dog on your shoulders, and the question is always which dog wins when they fight, and I've learned that it's the dog that you feed the most, which kind of works for me. So I'm trying to provide lots of input, which is building a pathway, reassuring, and not trying to engineer all the uncomfortable spaces out that are coming occasionally. Look, I'm doing okay, but it's quite an interesting journey that I've just stepped into when I made the decision a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, Andrew, you might be
Thank
interested. There's a guy I interviewed a couple of weeks ago, and he was on the call last week, but he just 2 weeks ago. Dr. Mark Cooper. He's 79 years old, and he was a very entrepreneurial guy all through his life. And then mid-70s, he started to realise things had changed a lot for him, and he wrote a book, and I think it's called Becoming an Elder. And so he talks about like what is an elder and that sort of thing. And it's the wisdom that we get. And now I'm not saying you're old, but you're the second oldest one in this little room of the group of four of us, because I know I'm old. I'm the oldest. And he talks about our age, mine and Andrew's age right now, as midlife, but we are transitioning to that elder age. And it's a mindset, and it's, like, I know a little bit about your background, Andrew, and, your mentoring ability and all of the things you've brought to the fire service and that sort of stuff. And we can all see that in each other, but it's challenging to see it in ourselves at times. So Mark's book, Becoming an Elder, I think could potentially be quite helpful for you. On his website, you can read an intro to it. I read, probably 10 pages, and I thought, wow, this looks really interesting. Yeah. And as for transitioning, I left the fire service 20 years ago, where Andrew's about to leave in a month. moved overseas, and then I came back, and that was the biggest transition for me. I went from, well, not, a reasonably fast-paced life in suburbia to moving to a tropical island just near the equator with 6,000 people on it, and a very slow, the speed limit was 25 miles an hour, and on half the island you couldn't even drive that fast because there's a few potholes and stuff. And to transition back to living in Australia from being over there for about 13 plus years was a big thing. We did fairly well financially when we left there. So I actually didn't work for 3.5 years when I came back. And I, as my wife says, I reinvented myself. I, traveled to the US 3 times and did classes on all sorts of different things, and traveled around Australia a little bit doing classes and learning all sorts of different stuff. And I know it was up here mentally challenging. I knew all the skills I had and the things I had to offer, but to try and fit into this modern world of how things had been shaped in the time I'd been away, it was even still now, I've been back when we moved back at the end of 2016, we moved back to Australia. So been back 8 years now. And it's still quite different for me. Knowing everything that I've got, all the experience I've had, but still finding a platform to be able to share it. Because as Andrew said, I like to help people. And it's selfish. I find the better that people in the world are, the more they're nicer to me. So the more I help people, the more they'll, it just goes around. And I just want to live in a world where people are mostly nice to each other, not because they have to be, but because they want to be. And so I've got that. Where you go, Andrew?
I was just going to say on the back of that, treating people. This last few weeks and leading up to the decision I've taken, what's been happening at the same time is where the organisation, as organisations do, they go through periods of change and reform, and new people come and join the organisation, and then you got your juniors who then come up, and I think this would be very similar to the military. Someone who you knew was a certain rank, back only a short time ago, they're progressing and they're ambitious, and sitting there and kind of observing it, because I've learned that sometimes your silence is the best thing you can bring to a discussion, and so I've been doing a bit of that, but listening to people who are got views about a range of things, including things that you've changed previously or been part of a thing, and it's clear that organisational memory is I believe is generally limited, that you get a change of people and all of a sudden people have got no awareness of what happened back in that third episode. And so all these new people coming in, and it's almost like they look at you and they go, well, you look like you've been here a long time, but I don't really know what you've done. Whereas back a few years when you're in your prime and you're really driving things and you're making bold changes and trying to help in any way you can, you're more visible. Whereas when you get near that end, and I'm acutely aware that you got to hand over the baton, so the next generation come through. So I've had that sort of playing out for me, and I've had to kind of let that. I've had to just let that thought come and then go, which has been really, really interesting. But from what I've read, it's very normal. And the other thing that's been probably really nice is, and this probably speaks to that concept that people in the end don't remember what you did. They remember how you treat them. during different moments. And I've had a few come up to me, whether it be in the hallway or car park or after a meeting, to actually thank me, and then raise this an example where at some point, in some cases years ago, when they were going through a tough time or they were trying to transition something really difficult, I was there for them in their mind. And for some of them, I don't remember it, but clearly it's made an impact on them for them to come up in an unsolicited way and thank me, and then remind me of what happened. And some of them I do remind. I can think of, and some of them were times where I went into bat for people, which is probably what part of my reputation, and because I've got such a strong justice value. If I look at the probably a dozen times I've ended up in some sort of conflict with other peers or senior people beyond me, it's because I've wasn't able to reconcile the conduct or the ethics behind something. And it's really nice to have these people come back and say, well, Andrew, you stepped in, you helped, and it turned out different to what it would have been. I mean, when I'm using the expression, they said, Andrew, I'd been put in the boat out the back. I'd been actually put in the dinghy, which is a tender, and put it. I'm talking hypothetically here, I'm not talking literally. And it was you who actually brought that boat back in and got me back on the main boat. And I've gone, okay, that's nice. So I'm enjoying that part of it, and I'm not looking for it. But I think those little chats that I appear to be now having with different people is actually helping me in terms of bringing to a close a chapter in my life. So just a couple of things I thought I'd share, which is what's happening for me in that regard. But but still learning. And look, sorry, Doug, I've already written down the name of that title of that book, so I'll go looking for it, and it may well be part of the part of the equation.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, and I remember that. I think it's people don't remember what you say or do, but they always remember how you make them feel.
How you made them feel. Yeah. It's real.
Yeah, and how you make them feel. It's the energy. So it's the emotion, and it's almost like an electrical charge that and they still plug into it at times. It's still there trickling through.
And Doug, I should add, you said feelings, and anyone who's worn a uniform, whether it be policing, emergency services, or military, know that in terms of a general cultural element of a uniform service, feelings tend to be disregarded, and we're not here for that. We're here for this, and your feelings are getting in the way, of us achieving our mission. And I get it. Sometimes you don't want people having a sharing their soul during the middle of a operation or a crisis or whatever. At the moment, we're into our bushfire season or our wildfire season, and we've had a few recent moments in the last few days where we've had to evacuate townships, and all the energy that goes with that, because that ends up triggering for the political class to become involved. And if there's one group that I'm not going to miss, it'll be our political leaders. But that's so I kind of put that down. Other things that I won't have to worry about, like I have to worry about now, where you're either bloody stroking egos or having to spend a lot of time reassuring senior people who probably should be more confident than they are. But again, they're all on their own journey, particularly the young politicians.
Yeah, and welcome, Alan. He's just just came in, and Trunnis has just had to go out. He sent us a little message, a little thing happening at home. Alan, what we're talking about today, just to bring you up to speed, is transitioning. Andrew's announced that in recent weeks he's decided in a month's time to transition out of his employment of the last 39 years with emergency services. And he's risen to the almost, you're probably one level below the pinnacle. Like there's that single state commissioner.
I'm a deputy.
Yeah, he's the deputy commissioner for the state and he has been in that role for various positions. So, if you've got any advice, Alan, on transitioning, from life, chime in. If not, don't want to put the pressure on you.
I'm actually going through that right now myself, Andrew. So I've been in the healthcare insurance industry for 30 years. I built a $25 million a year revenue business that I walked away from 2 weeks ago. So,
well, congratulations to you, Alan.
It's a very scary proposition, but I feel so much lighter. I feel so free. So.
Cool.
Alan, I just spoke about the different voices that end up in your head as your mind is trying to logically prepare for the change, and that thinking doesn't always help. That's how it kind of goes for me. Where I've got to be mindful that, that mindful that I'm not sure one of the other lads mentioned this about the amount of, I think it might be Kevin, the amount of negative thoughts that can creep into your mind. And I've always been, I need to disclose, I've always been an overthinker. So in terms of the bell curve, I know which end I'm at, but it's real. It's real for me. And I can't, I'm still surprised at how often my mind brings up potential problems that are very unlikely. Yeah.
It's interesting when you think about the brain's job is to do what? To keep you safe.
Yep.
And normally it doesn't even tell you the truth. It just keeps you safe. So, and the other thing that's, and I don't know, ironically, this is really good timing. So my wife came home yesterday and she has all this stress. And I'm like, what are you stressed about? She's like, well, you started a company back in a couple months ago. My product is in the fulfillment center. I've had a few sales, but not enough to, and she's worried about that. I'm like, we have enough in our account for a year to do nothing. And I'm like, why are you stressed? So you're going to get that too. You're going to have the people who are the closest to you are also going to be telling you stories that are going to get into your brain. And I hugged her and I said, yeah, I love you, babe. You just got to trust. You got to trust. And I have, for 29 years, I have done everything that everyone else wanted me to do. And I've never been able to do what I wanted to do. And now I have finally decided that I'm going to live in purpose and do what I want to do. And that's what you have to remember. You have to remember why you're doing it.
It's funny you should say that, Alan, because my wife has had the same reaction where she's worried about, is it going to be enough? And so even though I'd done it previously with her, I had to sit down and virtually go through the same exercise because clearly I probably wasn't communicating well enough with her to give her some sense of surety. Because I know my life's not going to change in terms of income, and that's probably the benefit of the superannuation system that we have in Australia. That you put into over decades.
Right.
But it was real for her. So I was mindful, even though immediately I was probably a bit short with her, not short as in awful, but disregarding. But that luckily I caught it. Maybe I read her body language. I don't know, but it triggered me to actually then sit down and get the books out. Talk about all the different elements, and after that she was okay. But as you know, Doug, Julianne's a very logical fact-based person. I think as a clinician, my wife is a radiographer and a sonographer, so she spends most of the time doing ultrasound. So her world is facts. When she diagnoses, it's all about the facts. And so I think that once I'd sat down and got all that in front of her, she's gone, okay, yeah, I get it. Thank you. That's good. I'm good. So, and that's because I'm not necessarily a fact-driven person. Yeah.
So Doug, I had a guest on my podcast yesterday. Her name is Bea Marie. She is an Australian actress. She's a coach. And we were talking about this yesterday. So she said, and I think this is kind of appropriate, the world is full of red balloons. And we're all like, the red balloon is kind of hovering around the surface of the water. And then you have that one balloon with helium. And that balloon does what? It naturally rises higher than all of the other balloons. So what do the other balloons do? They immediately grab for the string. No. You can't go there. You can't go up. We got to pull you back down into reality. So, and then you come back down. And then what ultimately happens, you're either going to rise again because of the helium, or you're going to explode to the pressure of not being able to live. That's ultimately when we burn out. It's because we're not living the way we're supposed to live. But eventually, if you let go and the balloon rises to the clouds where all the other helium balloons are, everyone is cheering and saying, what took you so long to get here? We're here to support and excite. And I thought that was so appropriate, because that's really what we're filled with. Like, we're all filled with, yes, tall poppy syndrome. So it's just that getting away from the rest of the balloons is all it takes.
Yeah. Kevin, you just typed in tall poppy syndrome in Australia too. I thought we were the ones who invented tall poppy syndrome, to be honest. It's such a conversation in Australia that it's just our culture.
Yep.
Well, yeah. I don't think the US have got anything on us in terms of tall poppy. And I know it does exist in the US. I've got American family, so I see it there. But it's a lighter version to what we have, and I think, Doug, I think that goes back to our short history lesson on Australia. Is at some point, 300 years ago, 250 years ago, England decided to send all its convicts to Australia. So that's the baseline. And of course, as we all know, people who are convicts or criminals, the worst thing you can do is rat out the mate. And so if you do something which removes you from the pack, and that includes achieving, then sometimes there's a real blowback on that. And I've seen it. I've had it happen to me, where years ago I got described as a self promoter, and I thought, well, as senior leaders, we need to be marketing and whatever, but and getting people to come along with us. But I look back at that and I go, well, was I really being over the top? And I go, no, I wasn't, because I'm not the person who's going to stand up and tell people how good I am. I am the person, though, not now because I'm about to transition, but previously, where I'd be happy to put myself out in front and take the blows that come with leading people in different situations. So it's that whole bloody tall poppy. It's alive and well, and to a point, Doug, I think that it actually detracts from the potential of our country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
It's interesting. I've seen in the States, not universal. I mean, it's interesting when things catch on at a societal level, like that tall poppy syndrome. If there's going to be an expression in the States, I feel like we want to see individuals rise to their zenith. And there's this undercurrent in the States too that also loves to watch a fall.
Yeah.
And then a redemption. It's this weird kind of insidious, role.
I almost think that we believe that the pie is finite. But I think we all naturally as humans believe that there's only so much to go around. And in order for me to win, Kevin, you have to lose. Right. Like it is a dog eat dog, which is so not real. I mean, it really is an infinite pie. And the conversation I had yesterday, with this woman. It was absolutely amazing. And she was like, everyone goes and they apply for a job. Maybe it's not even the job that you want, but you're taking the job away from somebody who really was meant for that job. They loved that job, they wanted that job, but you're going in and you're doing it because you want a paycheck. And in 3 months, you're probably going to quit anyway because the job sucks and you hate it. But you just took it from somebody who really wanted the job, who was destined for that job. So it really is an infinite pie, if we kind of think about it like that.
100%. And I've been gathering some themes from our conversation so far. And Andrew, I got to say, like what I'm feeling is emerging as the theme is presence, because like you gave some different examples at different ends of the spectrum of having people that have been impacted by your presence, by your positivity, by the isness of who you are in interpersonal ways. And people aren't going to remember an exchange if we're not being present in the communication. Presence is hypercritical, especially in fire and medical rescue services, because if you are not present, if you're distracted, then the wheels are going to fall off. And then also in those transition periods, and this is where that false evidence appearing real, or F everything and run, comes in. And you nailed it, Alan and Andrew. It's not just isolated. We co-create, everything that we experience, especially those close to us. We're sharing those biomes, we're sharing electromagnetic fields. And so it permeates. But it's that at the end of the day, it's just that little voice on the inside. And Andrew, I love that you said that you're not just dismissing it, you're actually working with it more. And that's really the thing, because our systems thrive on what we know. Our systems thrive on pattern and routine. And when we step into the unknown, or we step into change, you can almost imagine that fearful voice, whether it's coming from a spouse or that feeling on the inside. It's just little Andrew being like, dude, we've done this for the last like 15, 30 years. What are we doing now? And if there's no like plan or kind of, a hopscotch where it's like you see the next steps, again, it's that space between where the richness happens. That's where the opportunity is. And instead of dismissing, we can invite that voice in. It's, work with it. Like, hey, listen, I know it's different. I know it's new, but we got this. We got this. And I feel, Alan, that that kind of bleeds into what you're saying too, is, it's just this unrelenting, unyielding thought, even if it feels like an avalanche of counter thoughts or counter feelings coming in. We got this. No matter what, we got this. And sometimes it takes blowing it out. Sometimes I got to work out really hard because I'm freaking out. That's fine. We're helping hit that pressure release valve to come back to presence. But the more we shift out of that reactive autonomic nervous system fight, flight, freeze state, the more we come back to like the present moment, and that presence of mind, body, spirit, of like, oh no, in this moment, we're okay. So now what do we want to create, instead of acting from scarcity or acting from a perceived need? Even if things are dire, to that point, it's like, well, I need this job. Well, do you really? Or like you said, is that just a reaction to a fear? And you get in there, and then 3 months later, you're like, oh, well, this isn't what I wanted anyway. It's like, well, take the step first, get present, decide what you want, then go for it. And you'll get where you're going a lot quicker, even if it takes a little bit longer.
It's always the story under the story, because it's never really the story. So a lot of people that I work with as a therapist, that's the initial thing that you're going to bring to me is usually not it. It's usually like 2 or 3 down. We just got to get there.
Yeah.
So
the symptom is just the signal. Exactly. Yeah, the symptom is the signal pointing to the actual source of the dis-ease. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So, and Andrew, I love that you opened up the books for your wife. That was so, I think that's just what they want. I think they want to know that it's going to be okay. And I journal every day, and I share my journal with my wife. So yesterday, Kevin, actually was kind of funny. I was going through my journal, and what I realized is that I was acting like a CEO and an entrepreneur of a startup company. That's not fun. That's like an ivory tower looking down. But if I were a vice president of business development who just went out and treated it as a job, and I had a map, and I went and saw people, it took all the stress off. So I ordered business cards yesterday with vice president of business development. So, and I can't wait till Monday when I can just go out and hand out a card, and let me go back and talk to my manager.
Yeah. even if it's just changing out hats.
Yeah. And I read it to my
100%.
wife. I'm like, here's the refrain. We're gonna go have some fun.
There you go. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
So you're printing her cards, CEO.
She's already CEO. So, yeah.
Yeah. I hear you, Andrew, with Julianne, because I know Julianne. Like we've had many. Andrew lives about a 90-minute drive from us, but we've spent a reasonable amount of time together, meals and things like that. And and my wife Sally's the same. She's just as you're saying, she wants to see she's always left the finances to me, and it's like, wow, what's happening now? What's going on? And then also Andrew too, like when I had those 3.5 years off when we moved back from Micronesia to Australia 8 years ago, my wife and 4 children all were starting to wonder what's Dad really up to here, because I didn't work for 3.5 years, didn't need to, didn't want to, and then I'd be like, oh, I'm going off to learn this, I'm going to learn that, I'm going to do this, reinventing myself, and it was all out there stuff. I wasn't doing a course on business principles, I can tell you. It was all, energy clearing and all sorts of out there, off the charts. And they're like things they'd never heard of. I hadn't heard of them either. And it was like, so it was this constant, you just sort of knew, you had eyes in the back of your head. You just knew that they're all talking about you, like, what? So I'm just like, anything you do, Andrew, anything is not going to be emergency services that you've done for the last 39 years. So anything you do is going to be different. And, the kids and Julian, they're all going to be wondering, what's he really doing? Is this what,
Well,
yeah.
the thing is, and this comes back to bloody uniformed services again. People in those services tend to overly associate with their uniform to a point where I think I've met a few over the years that probably wear the uniform to bed. So it's a real strong theme that when the change comes, I actually understand why they probably go, what's he up to now? And I get that. But that's their discomfort, and I can't spend too much time changing my plan because it's a change for them. Julianne, I'm going to be very mindful of, because she's my soulmate, and the one that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. But the kids, that will be different. I should share in terms of transition. One of the things that I read somewhere, it might have been in one of the books I read was Die With Zero, which talks about having a bit of structure around that first change period. Whether it be, and they said it could be a holiday, could be leave, it could be something where you're just, not sitting there doing nothing, watching TV. And so, I didn't. We haven't shared this with you, Doug, but a few weeks ago, probably a couple months ago, our Alex finally announced that him and Taylor are getting married, and they're doing a what do you call it when you bug out and do it somewhere else?
Elope.
Destination.
Thank you. So it's an elopement wedding where the parents or the immediate family on both sides are part of it. Invited, part of it. And I know that kind of, is that really an elopement wedding? But anyway, it doesn't matter. And of course, the kicker was that they want to do it in Paris, France. So, there was a few weeks ago going, okay, so now we need to organise travel to Paris only a few weeks before Christmas at the most expensive time of the year. So everything, Airbnb, car rental, everything's at the peak price. And I had to actually go through a bit of, grieving about that. But then, we got to a point realising that, we got to put those concerns aside and be there for it, because we just regret if we weren't part of that incredibly important moment. So we've got that coming up. which will be fly out on the 19th of December for 3 weeks. Julianne had to plead to get her roster officer to open the books again to allow that to happen, because her industry, they plan leave a year ahead because of medical scheduling. It's been interesting. So that's going to be the first thing, and then get back, and we've got a couple of other things going, and then adjust where needed would be the term I'd use.
Yeah. So that's literally a couple of days after you retire, you fly to Paris.
Yeah. Yep.
Nice.
Yep. And we're going via Finland, because Julianne has always wanted to see the Northern Lights. And so that's a bucket list thing for her. So we're up in, I think they call it Lapland, which is that northern part of Finland. I've given her and Alex, Georgia, a heads up. This is going to be the coldest environment we've ever been to, ever in our lives. So we've got to be really, clear and careful on how we prepare for that, because it's like the maximum during the day is a negative. So but anyway, but it'll be all part of the experience, and it'll certainly provide different levels of stimulus, which will, I think, help me in terms of my transition.
Yeah. Be making memories, that's for sure.
Yes,
absolutely.
It's celebrationception. There's celebration on celebration. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I was like, man, retirement ceremony right off the bat.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
And I dread. I've got. I mentioned before my American family. I've got my uncle and aunt who live in San Antonio, Texas, and they're both now quite elderly. He's a retired 2-star Air Force general who met my aunt, my dad's sister, back decades ago through military circles. But the thing I know, when I speak to Richard about this, because I've not had that chat with him, when he finished his active service, he had a second career, which I think he worked on until he was probably 85, and so I think he's a great believer of you've got to stay in the trench to keep you going. I think he tempered, like he wasn't working full time, and he probably wasn't in the pressure cooker environment that he was in, but he made a second thing. So I can just hear his voice when I speak to him. He's going to say, "What's your plan? What's your plan? You got to have a plan." So, but that's good. We all need people around us who are going to challenge us.
Yeah.
Andrew, do you have a plan? Just out of curiosity, because I missed the first part of the call.
Yeah, I do, and because this is a public podcast, I won't go into the detail until it happens. But yeah, a couple of things. I've got a plan, and it's things that I enjoy doing, that there's actually a business element within to actually provide a service of a sort to people. So and just connecting with people who I've known for a long time, and a couple of them, they've said, when you're ready, we're going to get this thing off the ground and make it good, make it fun, and get a bit of pocket money along the way. So yeah, it's that, and then of course I do love my diving, and I will be underwater, and whether that allows me to take my underwater photography, because that's been that philosophy around senior people, particularly executives, need to have a artistic outlet as one of the means of maintaining sanity. And being able to step right out of the environment, and my underwater photography has been that for me. And so whether it's get some more education under the belt in that respect, because there's always other people who know more about something than you do, and doing a bit more specialised stuff. I don't know, but I've got a range of options that subject to anything else jumping in its way. I want to explore, and Doug, I'm still going to get you back in the water at some stage. I couldn't do what you did, where you, as part of Doug's business in Koserai, Doug offered scuba diving, and he's a dive master. But when that part of your life finished, Doug, and you sold or transitioned out of your ownership of that resort, I could never understand how you got out of the water. You must have got out of the water one last day, and that was it. But I get it. You were doing it for a business. You were probably, herding cats underwater with visitors. I get it was probably a different experience being a dive master, trying to keep a bunch of people safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because ever since, like you say, the one day that was the last day, I did 2 or 3 dives after that. I flew back to the next. You went to Pompeii, didn't you, Andrew?
Yes.
Yes, and I went and I dove Nan Madol, which was actually a sunken ancient city, and it's sort of 600-800 years old, and that part of the island had sunk. It was 30, 50, 60 feet underwater. So, and it's very rare you can do it because of the wind blowing. There's only like a limited pocket of the year when it's calm enough that you can actually get there. So yeah, I did that one unusual one. But yeah, I've done over 2,000 dives and never dived in Australia. Always done it overseas.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Mm.
But anyway, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it was always work for me. As much as I enjoyed it. It's yeah. And I didn't
I think I think what I love about the transition part is that I've been able to meet so many people that are outside of what I ever thought my life would end up being. Again, being kind of defined, and you, Kevin, we were kind of chatting about that. Your identity, it becomes your identity, and that identity kind of closes you off from conversations outside of what your normal perspectives are. And I have loved this last 6 months of just meeting with people that I don't know to say, tell me what you do and how can I support your vision? Like, that's all I really like. I have no other ulterior motives other than how do we support each other as we grow businesses. So it's been a lot of fun. I think that's the one thing, Andrew, that as you're kind of going that direction, just be present and open to whatever's going to come, because it may be something that you don't even realize or recognize. I mean, you kind of set on the helping executives take pictures underwater. I mean, that could be like something crazy fulfilling and a lot of pocket money. So just be open.
Yeah. And I am, sorry, I don't know whether I'm muted or not. No, I'm not. I am conscious that it might not be what I expected, but it might be better or might be different. So yeah, I'm really, and that's probably my nature. I've never been one who's so set in my ways that I just block things off. And I hope that mindset that I think I have, don't always deploy it properly, but will help me in terms of accepting what's going to come to me, in whatever form it's going to come. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, there's that I word, the intuition.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, well,
yeah, following that one. Yeah, excellent. Well, it's been a very insightful conversation into transitioning, and yeah, very good. Anyone got any final?
Well, I need to thank everyone, because at the beginning, when you put the question out there, and I'm hopefully I haven't derailed someone else who had something important they wanted to discuss. But I just want to thank you that you've entertained my need to have a chat about this perspective, because it's real for me at the moment. But thank you to you all.
But I've missed the last 4 because of this transition, Doug. So I was just so happy I was able to jump on.
Yeah, it was great. And it was like the one we had 2 weeks ago. I only came up with the topic like an hour before we started it. And the group we had on for that one was just perfect. And the discussion was perfect, of who was on the call. So we're getting different people flowing in and out of the calls. And like you saying, Alan, you hadn't not able to come for a couple of weeks and then back in. And it just, it's the discussion 2 weeks ago was probably not what you needed to hear, but this week was just, it's just flowing perfectly. I love it. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we'll say goodbye for another 2 weeks until we come back with another amazing topic.
Wonderful.
See you,
Stay
everyone.
safe. Stay
Have a
safe,
great couple
everyone.
weeks.
Okay, see you later.
Take care, gents.
Bye. Well, we're at the end of another thought-provoking episode. Remember to subscribe so you'll be alerted to new episodes. I want to say thank you to the men who are joining me on this journey of intuitive development. I truly hope our time together has expanded your reality and reinforced trust in your ever-reliable gut feeling. Embrace your intuition. It will not lead you astray. Until next time, stay tuned, stay curious, and trust your gut.